On today's episode of Watch Chair Go, I bought an RX-8. It's about time, right? What is going on, guys? I am Watch Chair Go, and today, like I said, I finally have an RX-8, the Rotary I have always wanted. Now, I know most of you think that's stupid, and you probably want an RX-7 FD, but I personally have always wanted an RX-8. And now we have to wait for this helicopter to leave. Now, this is a 2005 Mazda RX-8, the successor to the RX-7. It was right after the FD, although in Japan, it just kind of continued as like a linear thing. Here in the US, of course, we didn't have a rotary powered car for a few years there. The FD was discontinued, and this thing didn't come out in America until 2004. This one's a 2005, so of course, it's a very early version. It was refreshed somewhere along the model range. This is the first one, and I gotta tell you, this one is beat. So we're gonna go around it and check it out. Of course, it's a Rotary, so always a fun power plant to work with, even though they're also very problematic. And this one has a lot of miles on it, and I have a feeling it could be completely broken. I do know that it drove here, and it does not idle very well, but we're gonna get into all that here in a bit. That engine is the 1.3 liter Wankel. It's the Ruckus, basically the successor to the 13B. It's a 2-rotor. It should be pretty simple, but at the same time, I mean, these things are worn out, especially when they've got a ton of miles on them. There's plenty of parts. They made like 250,000 of the cars, and it's not like they're actually rare, but at the same time, like, do I want to put money in this? It's not really worth anything. You can see it arrived here at the house, and you know, a day later it's got a completely flat tire. It's got neochrome lug nuts on it. Let's go check this thing out and just see how bad it is. Since we're talking about high mileage rotaries, let's jump in here and see what the mileage is on this thing. I gotta say, I paid $1,300 for this car. I didn't find out anything about it. It was delivered here, and it has no title, and they've run a motor vehicle report to prove that it wasn't stolen, and it can be titled. But in reality, I think this car is a 100% lost cause. I just wanted to spend some time with the Rotary, especially an RX-8, and I don't want to pay $20,000 for a good example. So, let's see, 181,000 miles, 567 there. So it has some mileage on it, and it does have the 6-speed, so that does mean it has the higher powered 237 horsepower Ruckus in the thing. There's a bunch of different horsepowers, and if you have an automatic, everything is kind of turned down. I think it has a lower rev limit. These things have a 9,000 RPM rev limit in the manual, so it turns a lot of RPM. And you get all that power through the manual, but if you have the automatic, they didn't have a transmission that could handle the RPM out of the engine, so that's why they had to turn it down. So luckily, I got the good one. At least I think I got the good one. So right off the bat, we're missing a lot of trim. The fuse box cover there, that's missing. The entire cover for the steering column is missing. It looks like they tried to work on the ignition switch. It has an aftermarket key, which is unfortunate. I wish I had the Mazda one. And let's turn this thing on so you guys can just take a quick look at the gauges. They fade on to some nice white text. You've got oil pressure and temp gauge, fuel, and a giant tach. And then of course the speedometer is only digital, which is kind of nice in this car. You can pay attention to the tach and nothing else. We've got the zoom there in the display, your climate controls, all list right there, and a nice little clock, aftermarket head unit, and no one knows what this is. The guy that sold it to me doesn't even know what this is. You'd think it would be some kind of Bluetooth adapter or a flash drive, and it may be, but at the same time, it just lights up when you plug it in. It doesn't even change inputs, so kind of funny. Here on the steering wheel, we have some steering wheel controls that are not hooked up anymore, clearly, and we've got the cruise control, and it does have fog lights, which are pretty cool right there. Turn that little selector, and you know, everything else is pretty standard on this car, nothing notable. Manual climate control, old school, and there's a switch to turn off traction control. There's the gauge instrument illumination dimming right there, and wipers, and that's honestly it. It's a smoker's package car. We've got an ashtray right there, and it's been well used. If you look at the shifter, it's very cool. It's in the shape of a rotary rotor. So it's the little triangle there, the spinning Dorito itself right there on the shift knob. The sun visors in the RX-8 are very interesting. They have these strange like grid designs in them, maybe to keep them lightweight. and there is a lighted mirror in the center, but they're just pretty interesting. Not something you see very often, just a bunch of holes in the sun visor. If you don't get the angle right, it doesn't do anything. Got an upper console, all incandescent lighting, a little flip down sunglasses holder, and that is honestly most of the front of this thing. Cubby hole under the radio and a glove box, which does have the factory manual in it. One of the most unique features about the RX-8 is, of course, the fact that it has dual suicide doors, not just one like a Hyundai Veloster, but dual suicide doors. And this thing was actually meant to hold 4 adults. It's not supposed to be a 2+2. It's supposed to be a grand touring car. That's one of the actual trims of it as well. And it was supposed to have, you know, room for you and your friends. So both doors open very wide in the front, and there's no B-pillar in here. You just have a giant entryway to get into the back. And I gotta say, it looks like I fit comfortably. So let's check this out. It's like a Porsche Panamera for $1,300 right here. You got plenty of room. You got cup holders in the back, and you got your own center console. It's pretty big, honestly. So that is the back. Those are your accommodations. You can look at the Rotary symbol again. You've got another Dorito here that's right in the middle of the seat. And what's here? Ah, the ski pass-through and another compartment. They made the ski pass-through compartment very usable. You can put a lot of stuff in there, so you can get it out of your way if you're on a road trip. Not that I recommend taking a road trip in an RX-8. It's probably gonna break down. Getting out's not actually that bad. As I pull myself out of the back seat. Coming around the back here, let's look in the trunk first. Well, they don't really work. They sort of work. We got a little bit of rust here inside the trunk. This thing is pretty beat, I gotta say. So that's like a sealant on a pinch weld, and it's kind of coming off there. Wow! There is some junk in this thing. Full on, like, clothes and food. I'm gonna get some gloves and we're gonna go through here because honestly, I want to know what's in here. This is interesting. There's a lot of junk in this car. All right, we're ready to jump into this RX-8. I got some PPE on. I should probably wear safety glasses too, but you never know. All right, first things first, there were jumper cables in here because the battery's probably dead from cranking it for 3 hours until it unflooded. Obviously, flood clear is the most important thing to know about your RX-8. Or any Rotary, they're just always flooded. Even my old one had a switch to turn off the fuel pump. More jumper cable stuff. We got a fork. We got some Smarties that on a normal day I'd eat, but these look like they've grown, or well, they've changed colors. All right, this is just wild up in here. Oh man, there's bod. If there's bod, especially bod black, you already know. What, did this car stay in 2004 and never leave? It's my only guess, is that somebody just got it straight out of 2004 and it was never touched again. There's some interesting stuff in here. So we got a chicken pot pie, some stuff. Ah, look at that, 6 razors. I've never seen these brands. I think these are 04 Dollar Tree brands. Here we have dandruff shampoo. Is that a typical RX-8 driver thing? Somebody, the fruit snacks have gone bad, which is unfortunate here. Pants, forks, deodorant. I don't want to keep touching this bag here, but there's also Bumblebee snack on the runs. So that's the end of that. Who would have guessed? There's towing receipts for the RX-8 in here. Although it says it's an 08, it's clearly not an 08. It was built in 08 of 05. Good job, towing company. Built to private. That's all it says, $150 to tow it. Yeah, that checks out. So I guess you don't need the jumper cables. You can just have the car towed everywhere. Underwear, cool. Glad I touched that. We've got a belt, which is great. This is something good to have in your RX-8 to help tow it when it breaks. You never know when you need to hook it to another car. And we have an entire bag of clothes. These are like clean and packed. Look at this. We got, is that And One? Is that the brand, I think? I don't know. Jumpman. No more bod cologne, but, this does make me wonder. I think I found the owner. Maybe I can go get a title. There's names and addresses on here. I'm gonna keep those, and I'm gonna throw everything else away. Unless I find the guy's wallet, then I'd be an absolute, that'd be a win right there. I could fill up a Goodwill with this trunk if I wasn't worried about it having like roaches in it or something. Coffee cakes. Another bag full of Hot Wheels, and is this a bowling ball bag or tennis bag? Mead. It's gotta be a tennis bag, right? Or a telescope, I don't know, one of the two. Ooh, some 1988 Hot Wheels. I hate to throw these away, but they're all in terrible shape. Mr. Beam himself's in here. Throw all that away. The rest of this is full of food. And we found a meter, so I'll probably keep the meter, wipe that off, even if it still works, look at that. All right, that's a win right there. Flashlights, some ammo. That's all just going straight in the trash right there. And shaving cream, I think that's it. I think that's everything we needed to find out of this car. It's all going in the trash. I'll keep this. Gross, more underwear. Oh yeah, that's the floor mat you need in your RX-8 right there. All Harley Davidson. So that pretty much empties this thing out, other than this ultimate detail trimmer that I'm not gonna touch. We sure found some crazy things in this car. And I'm glad that I put this mask on. I was just playing around, but it was pretty gross. In here, we've got some goo in the tow hooks, and the jack is missing. But there is a lot of goo. And hopefully here was all the information I need to go get a title for this car. I want to make some phone calls. Well, I can finally take off my PPE. That was absolutely nasty. There's nothing like finding a bunch of old underwear, probably even used in an RX-8. The taillights, while we're back here, look amazing. I love the RX-8 taillights. And the RX-8 that I actually want, of course, is the R3 edition. I think the R3 edition looks a little bit wider. It's got better bumpers that go to the ground in the front and the back. This one looks like it's lowered, but it's poorly lowered and it doesn't really look that cool. One of these days I'll be done playing with this and I'll buy a nice RX-8, and it'll probably be an R3 edition in that awesome blue they came in. Let's go look under the hood. Under the hood we have a Rotary. Look how small and well packaged these engines are. So this engine is so tiny, literally the crank pulley is right here, or the eccentric shaft pulley technically, and the engine ends right here. It's barely, I don't know, 16 inches long, maybe a foot long. It's so small. And the cool part of that is the front suspension is right here. So it's directly in line with that front pulley on the engine, which makes this a front mid-engine car. It's not actually a front engine car. And of course, RX-8s are rear-wheel drive, so you can go have some fun and rip it with them. Now this thing's got some issues. The airbox has no filter in it. I noticed that when he pulled up. It has no AC. The compressor is straight up missing. There's like a block off over there that doesn't make any sense. Honestly, there's so much ridiculous stuff done to this car, and we're gonna try to sort out maybe a little bit of it. I would like to make it run right, but just so you guys know what I'm dealing with here. Battery didn't even look like it was attached. Oh, it's kind of on there. Let's start this thing up and you can have a listen. Now we find out, I've never heard a cold start. It was dropped off here running. It cold starts very well. That's kind of nice. There's a terrible rattle coming out of the back. A terrible rattle. That thing sounds bad. Top to bottom, it sounds terrible. It must be straight pipes. I do know it doesn't hot start that well, which honestly is pretty typical. It's an RX-8. What would you expect? It was probably flooding, but it runs really good cold start. Maybe this thing's not as bad as I expected. When he pulled up, it wouldn't idle either, so I assumed something was very broken up front. But with how well this thing just cold started, it might only be an issue when it's in closed loop. When it's in open loop, like it is when it's cold starting, it seems like it runs really well. So that's awesome. Let's get this thing out of the road and take it for a drive and just enjoy the Rotary fun. Get this thing back on the road with a little bit of air. There's a lug nut missing. That's always exciting. And there's also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zip ties holding the front bumper together. Well, with all the other excellent modifications we've seen on this car so far, like terrible lowering springs and neochrome lug nuts, I have to mention the carbon fiber eyelids over the headlights to make sure the headlights work far worse than they should. It cuts right over the front of the headlight, which is honestly ruined anyway because it's super faded. They wanted to try to make it look sleeker, and that backfired spectacularly. Now, let's jump in this thing and take it for a drive. I have not driven it at all, and I'm excited that it's gonna run, at least until it's warm. So let's go. This car already gave up on idling only seconds after starting. Now it's sitting there going, but it's out of gas too. I guess not having any gas is just as bad as flooding. We might have to stop and throw some fuel in this thing. Let's see if she starts back up. Now the one thing we know is RX-8s get terrible fuel mileage. Technically it does run. It sounds so bad. It sounds like the world's ending right now. We put $25 of premium in this thing. It is supposed to have premium in it. That got us a half tank. That's not that bad. I don't know how long that half tank's gonna last. As soon as this thing's off idle, it sounds fine. So there's like a shield rattling in the exhaust, but it's running really well. It's so smooth. Obviously, rotaries are really smooth. Here we go. That's a lot of power to do 40. The speed limit, it can do that. 6th gear. The transmission works great. This isn't so bad. I kind of love this car. It's got great oil pressure. It has no AC, obviously. We can only roll windows down. Not having an AC compressor severely limits the amount of air conditioning you can have. Oh, it's really fun to rev match with this thing. Wide open throttle. It's not fast. All the lights just came on at once. I hit a bump and check power steering, ABS and brake and battery all just came on. And now headlight adjustment's on. We need to head back to the house before this thing stops running altogether. The radio also shut off when I hit the bump. And now everything's back. All the lights just shut back off. All right, RX-8. Is it possessed? Or is it just really bad battery connections? One of the two. I hate that it's fun to drive. It's so much better than I expected. I have driven an RX-8 R3. It's the only one I ever drove, and it was brand new. And I don't think I loved it back in the day, but I kind of love this base model, which means that R3 must have been really good, honestly. It's just not fast in a straight line. It turns in so nicely. Why does this car feel so good? The front end is so sure of itself. Look at this, just one-handed, 40 mile an hour through a turn. Not even trying. This car is excellent. Mazda, why'd you give up on us? Probably because the engine's not great. Big bump. Of course it bottomed out. Really not a bad car. Now that it's kind of warmed up, it can't idle at all. Here, listen to it. It's doing everything it can to die. Back in gear. Well, the transmission feels great. The engine's smooth when it wants to run, which is not often, I gotta say. I think I need to fix this thing and go actually thrash on it. It seems like it's got more to give. Check engine lights on. So it knows something's wrong with it. The coolant temp's not coming up. It came just off of the cold mark and it's just kind of hanging out there. We're gonna do a little sorting on this thing, see what we can find out, and maybe this is a car that we actually need to save. RX-8, you've blown my mind. It just died. It was like, that's the end of your video. Sorry, man, I can't give any more. Who knows what's up with the cooling system, and I smell a little bit of oil, but the thing does work. The brakes are excellent, the transmission's excellent. It doesn't go fast, I can tell you that. I mean, you can go wide open throttle and it just eventually gets up to speed, but it's a lot of fun the way it drives and brakes and kind of does everything very predictably, and the front end is very sure of itself. I like the car, and it's probably a little bit better now that it's not full of old underwear. That is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to head on over to shop.watchjrgo.com for cool shirts just like this. And please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do. And I will talk to you next time. Might also help if it had all of its lug nuts. There's another one missing. And also, I found a lot of rust. It's like it's not worth saving, but I love the way it drives. I think the answer is you find another RX-8 and you put an LS in this one. Or you just get rid of this one. This one's pretty bad, I gotta say. It's really fun to drive. I wasn't expecting that, but it's pretty bad at the same time. Well, in the next episode, we'll start figuring out what's going on with this thing, why it's got a check engine light on. Maybe that gives us a few answers. It would be nice to run a compression test too, because there's a good chance that that's the real issue. Or the coils. Everyone says the coils are always bad on these. All I know is they're expensive. I know people are gonna freak out about the price in the car, but every other $1,000 RX-8 in the world says needs fuel pump when they really all need engines. And this one actually runs and drives, so this is probably a pretty okay deal. Probably sells for like $4,500 once it has, you know, everything sorted out.